such an asshole.
All right. This is a good lesson to have. So let's go through it. And I can see where there's a little bit of confusion. But if you work in banking and you see the actual operations of banking, you'll understand it. So I try to remove all the advanced. What you're really asking is called the Fisher formula, which is the relationship between interest rates, inflation, bonds. But it's broken. That doesn't apply anymore. Pretty much because we decided to make money printer go burr. And we do not have private interest rate markets. We have the Federal Reserve setting interest rates, and a bunch of other, consequently, private interest rates are based off of that. We have artificial inflation rates. I'm sorry, interest rates. So you could just pack up all of the finance industry, not the finance industry, all financial theory, just throw it out the window. Even valuation, we just keep printing off. How do you value a stock? Well, ask what percent money we printed off. Oh, we printed off 15% more money. I bet your stock prices are going to go up 15%. No one pays attention to the fundamentals or cash flow anymore. And thus it's the same thing with bonds or loans and interest rates. So let's go ahead through this. Captain Capitalist, I'll try to keep this short. Can you make a video explaining the relationship between inflation and hyperinflation? It's just inflation and loans. Please let me know what you will charge for a video. In a recent video, you mentioned to a client that if your interest rate is low enough on a mortgage, you don't throw money at it because of the current administration making the money printer go burr. All right, let's stop here because it's separate from the overall economic point. Yes, for those of you, many of you who are thankfully refinanced below 3%, you are your interest rate is say 2.8%, but inflation is 8%. And assuming, this is a big assumption, assuming your income keeps up with that, that means you're going to generate more income over time than what the rate of inflation is. So your dollars in the future will be cheaper on a real purchasing power basis to pay off your mortgage in the future. Also, with the money that you make now, if you were to invest it, quote unquote, and were to maintain, keep up with inflation, the value of your investments would go, let's say inflation's 8%. That grows at 8% while your interest rate is only 2.8%. So what are you netting? 5.2% real purchasing power gain. So that's basically what you're doing is in the future, your income's going to be inflated by 8% a year. Wait till the mortgage is and just pay it off that way. So that's kind of there. But yes, that's you essentially let inflation erode at the real value of your mortgage and your mortgage payment. All right, so that's one thing. Personally, my only debt is around $217,000 outstanding, a 30-year mortgage, 2.875% interest rate. I bought the house for $330,000. I made a huge down payment when I bought it in 2018. I have about $50,000 liquid cash in the bank. Was planning on throwing a couple $1,000s at, but after hearing you say don't do it in this period of high inflation, I opted to should I only pay the minimum amount. Yes. Now there's another argument that has nothing to do with inflation, though technically it does. And that's the amortization, the rate at which you pay it off. And regardless of the interest rate and inflation rate, I still recommend putting a walloping extra principal payment up front. Even to this day on my mortgage, I still pay a little bit extra, but I'm coming up on a year, I think, of having this mortgage. I'll probably put another walloping payment down, and then I'm done. And what that does is it drastically increases or accelerates the point at which your house would be paid off. So it depends on your interest rate and your amortization, like if it's 30-year, 15-year, etc. But generally speaking, if you make 6 months worth of payments, extra principal payments on your mortgage, the day you get that mortgage, that can accelerate and end a 30-year mortgage 5 years earlier or something. You'd have to take a look at an amortization schedule. And I think having that end 5 years is worth it psychologically. I know financially you're not coming out ahead, but I'd rather have a mortgage paid off 5 years earlier for 6 months of labor than not. So that's another trick you could play. But yeah, financially speaking, you don't throw another dime, not another dime at that mortgage, man. You let Uncle Biden and Uncle Trump and Uncle Obama and a little bit of Uncle Bush, you let all that money they print off, you let that inflate that sucker away. So that's in your particular situation. And anybody, you got an interest rate of 3% or lower, don't pay off your mortgage, assuming your income keeps up with inflation. I I understand if we get into a Weimar Republic or modern Zimbabwe where the Zimbabwe person is a billionaire, could pay off my mortgage with $1 million bill and have enough change for 2 eggs. Yeah, there you go. That's 5, 10, 20 years, whatever in the future. But wages are inelastic. Well, that's your fault. Go up to your boss. Hey, inflation's 8%. I want a 9% raise. And you are right. Wages are sticky going up and down. Inelastic. Sticky is a better word because normal people who have sex that aren't economists know what sticky means. But yes, they are inelastic. But that's your job to go and like, hey, inflation, here it is. The CPI says inflation went up 8%. I want 10% with my 2% raise on top of it. Blah, 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 bye. Wait, because thankfully there's a labor shortage now too. As we see the grocery store and gas station, I and everyone else see everything going up except for our paychecks. You guys got to ask for more pay. Not to mention tax rates generally do not go up with inflation rates. Yeah, you're right. You're right. They do not. They do not. Again, I'm just asking for a video explanation between inflation and loans. I would think by extension, inflation rates. Thanks for your time. P.S. Been following your blog a long time. Would like to personally thank you for all the work you've done. You're 100% correct when you say that you are the older brother we young guys never had. Thanks. And I had 2 greatest decisions in my life: bought a motorcycle 2013, leaving New York City and moving to Arizona in 2017. Reconnaissance Man, great book, by the way. It was a big help. Thanks. Again, you're doing God's work. Nope. I said it before. I am not trying to do this for charity or even money. I'm doing this to piss off all the right people. I'm doing it to give the finger to all the people in America. So let's go through this. I think I've explained the practical role that inflation will play in people who have a mortgage. So I think we did that. But let's explain where the confusion might be with inflation and interest rates, where people are like, well, wait, inflation is 8%. Why aren't home mortgages and all that also 8%? So let me go to my notes here. I'm going to go through this very clearly. All right. So let's establish why banks are dumb and bankers are dumb. Okay. And I do mean this. They are stupid people. I'm not saying because I hate bankers. I hate bankers on top of it, but they are also very dumb. All right. So banks are dumb. Reason number 1, they do not understand inflation or real dollars. Banks are not managed by financial geniuses. If that was the case, we would not have financial crises. They're managed by MBA-laden idiots who are dude bros. And they, as a steward, as a manager of the bank, they ultimately don't care about inflation-adjusted profit. They got to make a nominal profit because if they're a large corporation, large bank, and their compensation was tied in like, oh, you got to increase profits by 20%, then you get your bonus. Well, if inflation accounts for 15%, they don't care. Matter of fact, they probably like inflation in that sense. So all they got to do is get a 5% real increase in that. But they don't care. They don't own the bank. They're the managers of the bank. So they're not really caring about inflation adjusted dollars. They just want to post the numbers they need to post to impress the board of directors, also a bunch of idiots, so that they could go ahead, keep the job and get their bonuses. So no one, like, this is one thing I found shocking when I was a young man. Banks don't employ economists. They really don't. I worked as an economist at was then Norwest, which turned into Wells Fargo. I don't think they have an economics department anymore because I just don't think they care. I think banks are really just looking more to be like it's better to understand banks as a factory that move and take a commission off of money, more like a brokerage. So they don't care about investments, what's happening in the interest rate environment. Blah, blah, blah. They might care like when it comes up on them, but they don't really employ economists. So they don't really care about inflation. They only care about nominal profits as far as that gets their bonuses, at least the managers. And then like think below executive team, walk into a Wells Fargo. You think the branch manager gives a damn about inflation? They don't care. They just want your money and churning it in and out. They want to get you an insurance product, an investment product. Ooh, I know banks where their profit model is not even necessarily, getting an interest rate higher when they lend it out than what they got to borrow at. It's getting fees. A lot of low-level banks, they want to get fees and late charges. That's their model. And then they cross-sell credit cards. So interest rates and inflation has really nothing to do. That's not on the minds of most banks today, right? So banks are dumb in that way. Banks are also dumb in that they didn't predict this inflation. Now, when a bank has to make a loan, there's the term, how long are we going to lend the money out? Now, if you look at short-term rates, they're very high because inflation right now is very high. But when a bank lends on 30 years, they're saying, well, what's the inflation rate? If they even consider inflation at that time, what's the inflation rate over time? Well, it's not going to be 8-10% like it is now. They think it's just going to go back to good old Alan Greenspan days of the 1990s and the early aughts. And we got blowjobs in the Oral Office. And that was good. Women like that. Women love Bill Clinton. They just absolutely love Bill Clinton. He was such a great guy. Anyway, so they're saying over 30 years, well, inflation is not going to be 8% for 30 years. Probably going to go back to 2 and 1.5%. So they're going to be okay lending out at 2.875, 3, or more moderately 4. Like, well, there's a little bit of inflation now, but over time it's going to go down. So they're going to lower the interest rate. So that's another factor that goes in it. But it's such a great article written by The Economist saying economists were blindsided by inflation. Well, banks don't even employ economists anymore. So, all right. So if they even did have economists on staff, these economists would not have predicted this longer term and non-transitory inflation. Now we're starting to freak out about it. Now we're starting to realize, oh my God, did you know when you quadruple the money supply, inflation might go up? And even then, I think they're still just pricing in for 3 to 5 years out. Because what is a 30-year mortgage, like 5%? Oh, okay. So they didn't predict this amount of inflation this early on. And I still think they're underestimating the amount of inflation going forward. Otherwise, your mortgages would be, if a lot of you aren't old enough to remember this, but interest rates were double digits. I think it was like 18% for a 30-year mortgage and 81 or 80. That's the last time we thought we could just print off more money. Yay, Nixon. Yay, Carter. Reagan, not a politician, came in and said, knock this stuff off. Volcker, get in here. Volcker was Ronald Spears of the economist world. Volcker, get in there, relieve Dyke. You're not in command. But I don't want to go over another Volcker recession economic lesson. Anyway, so banks didn't predict this amount of inflation. I still think they're underestimating it. So is that banks are dumb? Reason number 3. They still think inflation is going to be less than 2.87%, at least at the time they made your loan over 30 years on average. They think inflation will be less than that. So that's why they've even baked that in, and they accounted for the risk you'll default. So they think inflation is going to be significantly less than 2.875%. That's, again, even assuming there was an economist on staff saying, hey, don't you think we should adjust our profits, ensure they're for our shareholders and bankers? Like, shareholders, what are that? Doesn't the government just bail us out? Well, there's another reason. And then finally, the bank owners, people who own the banks, especially if you're large and publicly traded, that's your normie, conformity, inferior morons. These are your people, if they're smart enough to invest in a 401k and IRA, they don't analyze inflation. They don't care about, our profits increasing at the rate of inflation or not. So they're not going to elect board members to say, hey, we got to adjust for inflation. We want profits above the rate of inflation, because here's the dirty little truth. The stock market has been so far removed from underlying fundamentals. Ultimately, what cash flows, real profits, real cash flows are we generating? Because no one cares anymore. It's how much now people are investing in the stock market as a hedge against inflation. I'm not kidding when I'm saying this. You could take securities analysis by Graham and Dodd and throw it out the window. Warren Buffett's investing model or technique, whatever it is, it's obsolete. I'm not saying he's not a bad investor now, or he's a bad investor now, but it's just obsolete. And so your average investor no longer cares about the underlying fundamentals. They don't look at discounted cash flow or cash flow. Right? And a lot of people are just investing in stocks as a hedge against inflation. So profits and cash flow, let alone inflation adjusted, has been decoupled from the asset prices. No one cares anymore. And so again, finance is now dead. Finance as an analytical tool, as a profession or skill, is obsolete. It's dead. What's going to happen to stock prices? How much money did we print off? It's more than that. But yeah, it's gone from looking at an income statement to looking at how much money did we print off and what's the velocity of money right now. That's really what it is. Where cash, the ICI, they did mutual fund flows. You should watch mutual fund flows. That's more important than, well, what's the PE ratio? What's the S&P 500 PE ratio right now? Do we break 40 again? I don't even care anymore. I just don't care because it's pointless. My degree is even worth less now than it was before. So yeah, so no one cares about inflation, from the owners to the banks to all the way down to the teller. And so now banks only look at nominal profits. Like, are we bringing in more money than we're spending out? So the conclusion, banks are no longer lending out to account for inflation or real profits. They're just looking at nominal profits. So now here's the question, what do they lend on? And here's where interest rates are more set than a concern about inflation. It's their cost of capital. All right. You say, well, what's their cost of capital? Well, a bank, you got to view now you see the operations of the bank. A bank is a vault. A bank is where people go to deposit their money so it didn't get stolen in the olden days. And now it's kind of the same thing here. So banks get their money from who? Who do they borrow money from? They borrow it from you, the depositor. That's why you're paid. When you go to a bank, yes, you're depositing your money, but you're also lending the bank money. That's why you would get some interest on it. Now you get this joke of an interest rate. Say, well, why is the interest rate so low? Because not only do we print off so much money, the economy's not growing either. So there's no demand for that money. Don't worry about inflation. Just think about money as a resource. Okay. Like steel. All right. You lent all your steel to the bank and you're saying, why isn't the bank paying me a high interest rate on my steel? Aren't they lending out steel to other builders or contractors or whatever? No, they ain't, because ain't no one building steel houses no more. I mean, housing's booming. And that's about the only thing where they're lending money out is the housing market. But if there's no demand for steel, if there's no demand to build things with steel, the steel just sits there in these bank accounts, in these vaults of the banks, or digital vaults now. And the banks ain't lending it out. They ain't making no money. Right? It's the same thing with actual money. You deposit money, but if there's no demand to lend the money out, that money just sits there. And you could see this with the velocity of money. Like, people just, like, at the rate at which a dollar is respent. There is no demand for real construction, for real businesses. There's no business demand. If there's any kind of demand, it's in the housing market. Okay. And you've seen inflation go up there. And it's in the buyback market, but that's kind of tanked off because I think stock prices are going down. But there's still way more. And when you print off more money and the federal government infuses the banking system, the capital accounts of the banks, like, here's your trillions of dollars. Banks are like, thanks, we're no longer insolvent. But you don't have people working. You don't have a real economy that's growing. And so the banks are they're not lending money, which means they're not generating any interest income, which means they're like, got to lower their interest that they're paying out. Some banks won't even take deposits anymore. I remember the bank I used to work with 10 years ago, like, we don't need any more deposits. Stop selling deposits. Okay. We need to drum up business. I'm like, well, this was in Wyoming. I said, well, in order to drum up business and lend dollars out, we got to find hardworking men and women and entrepreneurs. But we're in Wyoming and everyone's as dumb as a tree out here. And you wouldn't want to lend money to these people anyway. We lend money anyway. Oh, we lost money. Oh my God. What do we do? How do we do? Oh my God. Then also another reason you get so little on your deposit account. Banks incur real operating costs. They got their staff, they got marketing, they got electric bills, they got insurance. They gotta go and do underwriting. They gotta go and do site visits. They have to have meetings. They gotta go golf. They gotta have sex with their brothers, sisters, cousins, because that's what bankers in Wyoming and bankers in general do. It all costs money. I'm kidding. They actually have some real operating costs. And so if they can't get a 5% loan, there's not enough volume of loans out there to generate the cash flow they could afford. They got to cut. They can't afford to pay you in interest. Some of them don't pay you. Some are even starting to charge. I think this is in Switzerland, where it's like, now you're going back to the real old school version of a bank where it's like, you're paying me to protect your money. I don't want to protect your money. That's work. I can't lend it. I'm just going to watch over your money. So now you're going to pay me, and now you have real effective negative interest rates. Anyway, so that, they can borrow at dirt cheap rates right now from you depositors at whatever a fraction of percent. And let's say your dude bro, Mr. Carlson School MBA graduate, your dad was a pretty big deal at Cargill, and you lent out a bunch of money and didn't get paid back because you lent it to a dude bro. It's all right. The federal government will lend you money through the interbank lending system, but effectively that's all financed and funded by the Federal Reserve, where the money printer goes burr. And the Federal Reserve has dirt cheap, LIBOR, not LIBOR, that's the central, or is that the United Kingdom? Federal funds rate. Dirt cheap. Well, maybe not. They're slightly increasing it by a quarter point here or there. So banks can borrow at dirt cheap rates, either from you, the depositor, or the taxpayer. And then they can borrow at a fraction of 1%. So all they have to do to make money is lend out at 2, 3, 4, 5%. Now, I'd have to figure out why interest rates are going up now. I don't know if it's because interest rates, like lending rates with the Fed, is going up, or the interbank loan is going up. I don't know if they're finally pricing in inflation risk into these lendable dollars. I don't know. I don't care. But that is why you can have an interest rate that's a lot lower than the inflation rate, is because banks it's an operation. They borrow at a fraction of a percent. They don't give a crap about inflation adjusted profits. So they don't care if they make 3% a year, even though inflation is 8%. To them, that's 3%. Because I'm a dumb banker. Hardy, har, har. I used to remember, like, oh, wow, high finance bankers and executives are so intelligent. You guys are the dumbest, biggest thieves out there. You're so stupid. You're so dumb. So that's how interest rates and inflation work now with your loans. And God bless you. I mean, it's one of the few good things for the hardworking people of America. All three of you who have homes, you got a mortgage. You got a mortgage at 2.5%, or 2 or 3, or even 3.5%. That's great. It's great. Don't pay it off. Socialists want to print off more money. Let them. Okay, but you don't pay off your mortgage early. You let them pay it off. All right, there. That's that economic lesson for the day. Let's go through the super chat, see if there are any here. Oh God, it's Arcady. Oh God, Arcady, don't give me no. He's gonna come up with one of his damn questions. 8191, $5. Finance a gold butt plug to hedge against inflation, but the interest rate was like 12%. What? As long as you're having fun with it, man. Good. Caprigoon Cabulous. Hey man, what's up? Where have you been? $5. I don't want to refi. I like the number where it is. I only see it shrink. 4% didn't think it was worth it. No, because when you refinance, you got to pay fees and financing. It's usually not worth it. If you could get a real low interest rate, like I remember I had a 6% interest rate and I wanted to refinance it down to like 3 or something. It would have saved me like $600 a month. And banks wouldn't refinance me. You know why? Because I was self-employed. Never missed a payment, made extra principal payments, lowest risk ever. Wouldn't finance because I was self-employed. Caprigoon Cabulous, $5 from 4 to 2.5%. Sorry, current conditions have you reallocated to move some of your portfolio? Hell, I know I did, and set cash aside. Have you reallocated or moved some of your portfolio? No, I'm a very lazy investor. I just toss it into the stock market, S&P 500. And obviously I don't need real estate. I got my house, so I have enough exposure to real estate. I probably need more stocks. Not really. No, I just invest in the stock market, S&P 500. It's not investing. I just hedge against inflation. Even I know it's not investment. I guess I'm glad I was lazy and been working on the house, because the stock market has been going down. Usually I make my 401k or IRA payment in one big swoop. I pay it and I'm done. But this is also the benefit of not having kids and being a single bachelor, and like you don't need that much for retirement. I'll link to it down below. I mean, if you guys are interested in finance or retiring like early, stocks and investing is one thing, and interest rates and all that. The other is like philosophy and minimalism. I got a class. If you guys want to sign up for it, it's offered through Teachable. It's called Achieving Financial Excellence. It has very little to do with 401ks and IRAs and things like that. It's like, what is wealth? How is wealth going to evolve over time? How do you identify what wealth will be in the future so you know to invest your time into that so that you are more wealthy? So that's open for enrollment, as always. You can search that Teachable. Search the Clary School of Economic Philosophy. And quite literally in 2.5 hours, hour and a half, however long it is, you'll learn more about investing than you will have ever learned in the schools, because you didn't learn anything in the schools about investing. Katie, our Ashkenazi Jewish agent in the field, who sends me incredibly painful and complex questions. I just returned from a country where people want to be back working downtown because it's free of politically correct BS. Just returned from a country where people want to be back working downtown because it's free of politically correct BS. What country is that? Is this a big factor discouraging our workers from returning to the office where they have to watch their every word? I think, that doesn't help. All right, the commute's the number one deterrent for commuting downtown or commuting anywhere. Doesn't matter if you're downtown. It's the commute. Gas, waking up early, traffic, the stress. All right, the commute right there, that's done. You don't have to do that. I don't know what country it is, but here in America, I'm sure regular corporate politics, office politics was another reason not to go in. All right, so you didn't have to deal with that. The third reason would be more modernly, yes, the woke politics with the diversity and inclusion training, brainwashing, where people aren't doing that anymore. But what country is that where the downtown is like, okay, we'll stop being weapons grade dicks, we'll stop being Nazis, and watching every word? Yeah, but if you all go back downtown, they're gonna look, employers are livid. They actually have to treat their employees with respect and heed their wishes. These employers are sharpening their knives in the meantime to actually come back with a brutal vengeance once they have you all back downtown. Once the labor market switches, they're going to absolutely treat you guys worse than they ever have before to get revenge. Because again, it's not profit. It's politics. It's mental illness. It's ego that drives most employers today. So I don't know. I would say it's temporary. I'm still get self-employed, guys. You just say no. No, I'm not commuting. I am only going to work remotely because that's all my job requires. No, I'm not getting an MBA. And no, I'm not taking your woke diversity crap training. I'm not taking it. No. Have fun hiring nothing but whatever. Ladasha with her HR degree. Soon your office is just going to be a bunch of minority people and women with HR degrees. And no self-respecting guy or gal who has like an engineering degree or accounting degree is going to go into that nightmare of a hellhole. Soon that's all it will be. There should be a law, like every institution that isn't statedly conservative ends up being leftist. As soon everything will just become a bunch of minority people with their HR degree. And you can't call women minority because they're not the majority. Women and minorities, all with HR degrees. And then it would just implode like a black hole. James G, $10. What is the future of Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, and South Dakota? All these states have had an influx of people. Homes, all states have gone up by at least percent in a major city area. I think there'll be an initial boost of conservative, libertarian, simply not Democrat people moving in. I think it will shore things up politically a little bit here and buy us another 5 to 10 years. But yeah, housing prices have gone up. They will go up. They'll continue to go up in real terms because more people are moving here. There's going to be shortages in these small little towns. Already there's a shortage of tradesmen. There's wait lines. You're going to want to, I think you're going to have some other people who are accustomed to city life and things going faster move back. saying, I can't handle this, because wifey poo generally won't be able to handle it. But I think by the time I'm dying, they'll be blue, because whatever remnant boomer, Gen X, or conservative, libertarian, Republican types are alive will be dead and be replaced by immigrants who generally vote Democrat mindlessly. Their actual politics may differ, but given that you all keep sending your kids to the schools instead of homeschooling, your kids are going to be brainwashed. They're going to have more purple hair, more green hair, socialist politics. And then you're all going to die. You're going to die. Where's the food? It's in that field. Oh, but it's just a bunch of weeds, right? Because you all majored in sociology here in the University of South Dakota and not farming. And none of them know how to run that tractor, let them know the agriculture or the fertilization or the watering or the engineering that goes into that. And none of you certainly know anything about transport. So that's all right. The food, ironically, is literally right there. You're just going to have to work in the fields. But I don't want to work. I have a degree in women's studies. All right. You're going to die. The good news is women and men will start looking a lot more attractive before that time. People are going to get a lot thinner. So people are going to look really sexy for a brief moment before we all die. You're gonna die. Arcadia again for $10. Will downtown San Francisco ever be nearly as vibrant as it used to be? No. I mean, yeah. I mean, everything has a cycle. Assuming the buildings and the infrastructure maintain themselves, I don't know how long they can go unattended. But if we go through a collapse and 50 years goes by and people are like, hey, the starvation and valuing ourselves based on the traits we were born with isn't putting food in our mouths. Maybe we should stop worshiping the liberal middle-aged white women and what they say with their jokes of degrees, and we should maybe bring back farmers again. It took Putin, 20, 25 years kind of turn Russia around, turn into a pretty good economy. Their fundamentals are pretty good. But no, not in our lifetime. No. Like, why? Does California look like it's going to start voting conservative soon? These people will not turn around. They won't. They're mentally ill. This is all they have is their leftist politics. That's all they got. They're not. Is a 58-year-old feminist ever going to say, "Oh man, I wasted my life and I should"? No, they'll double down because they have the sunken cost fallacy. They can't admit they wasted their lives. The politicians aren't going to change it. Here's the only way downtown San Francisco, and it could happen in Detroit, is if the city becomes so desperate, they sell off the land. Like private property owners just abandon the property. Everyone abandons it. And then a rich private individual or a group of investors comes in and say, we will buy downtown San Francisco. You could do this with Detroit. All right. But we are not under your government. We will secede from the city of San Francisco. We will secede from the city or the state of California. We are our own separate city state. Right? We're putting up a bunch of big ass walls. Right? We have our own police, we are our own sovereign city state, essentially, maybe falling under federal law, or maybe it's a federal zone. But you obviously, the city of the citizens of San Francisco and the people they elect have proven themselves inept. You are not able to keep up the city. All right, but we will buy from here some money. Ooh, money. Spend it on needles and heroin and single moms. That'll turn the economy around. But you're not allowed here anymore. We own this. This is our property. And we don't answer to you. We don't answer to the city of San Francisco anymore. It's the city of Cappyville or Arcadieville, whatever. All right. And then you say, oh, hey, it's like a Hong Kong or a Singapore. It's a city state. We have very strict rules here. It's very clean. You got to apply for permission. You could almost be like an HOA or a gated community. Like you got to apply to live there. Be a lot of places to fill up. And you could offer, companies can base their headquarters here if they'd like. But that'd be the only way in our lifetime we would see something like, I mean, how long has Detroit been bad? It's been bad since I was a little child. So that's 40 odd years. It's not turning around. It'll turn around when people stop being lazy, and that's never going to happen. Arcady, $5. That country is Israel. All right, is Tel Aviv like? Okay, just kidding, just joking, guys. Come back now. What's political correctness in Israel? What is that? What we really like the Palestinians? What? Oh, they didn't fire rockets at us. Son, what is political correct, or is it more of the sexual dynamic? Don't look at women. Don't ask girls out at work. Don't talk to them. James G, $2. How do you rank these 4 states for living? Oh, Idaho. Well, obviously South Dakota would be number 1 for me. I then do Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming. Montana, just don't live in Billings. Idaho, don't live in the south part. It's high desert, it's boring there. And absolutely don't live in Wyoming. Do not live in Wyoming. Someone asked me if I'd rather live in San Francisco or Wyoming. I think I ruled on San Francisco because I could find a nice place in the suburbs, and I wouldn't have to actually deal with the people defecating in the streets. Whereas Wyoming, it's everywhere. It's the entire culture. There's got to be like a gentrified, generally nice area of San Francisco where people aren't Marxist Leninists. I could be wrong. I don't know. I met another one of your buddies, an agent in the field from Israel. Very interesting guy, Arcady. You guys should talk. Again, super high IQ over in Vegas. The Geth, $5. Remember in RoboCop when OCP defunded the police to drive down property values so they could buy it up and bulldoze it to make a corporate city? No, I don't even remember the backdrop of it. I was a kid. I remember RoboCop got effed up and he turned him into RoboCop and he fought the bad guys. Yeah, it's kind of like that, but you don't have to be the OCP to drive down property values. The Democrats will do that for you. They will. They will. James G, $2. Why are people so different in Wyoming and Montana? They're really not. It depends on the city. Like the border, Billings is basically an extension of Wyoming. Missoula is more of a liberal town because of the university, but you get up to Kalispell and East Glacier and White Falls. You're getting into ranch land where there aren't a lot of people. There's parts of Wyoming you can go to where you just, if you're left alone, like you really got to be left alone, but you just don't. No, you just don't go to one. Wyoming's got something, man. It's something in the water, something with those people. They're really dumb. They're really dumb. Someone sent me, an IQ by state. They're not that dumb. They're kind of average. No. They must have been testing the wrong people. Maybe they all have high IQs in Wyoming, but they sure as hell don't use it. They sure as hell don't use it. That's it. All right, there you go. See you guys later. Link below. Toodles.